welcome to this session with us. My name's Zach. This is Jared. Both of us work at Highland Baptist Church here in Waco. Come on in. I've been on staff for 9 years now, and started out part-time and then worked myself to full-time. But I've been primarily doing production, overseeing production and some creative elements as well, video, photo, and then also, like any church work, I also do young adults, like you do a random thing. I feel like if you work for a church, you throw another hat on. That's what we naturally do. Yeah, Jared?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jared Billups. We're at the same church. I've been there for about 12 years. I was in the church in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for about 10 years before that, in Irving, Texas, if anybody's familiar with DFW. But have been here in Waco for about 12 years. Been married to my wife, Crystal, for almost 20 years. This coming December. We've got 3 kids. We're about to send our first off to college in about T-minus 17 days. So the countdown is on for us. And then we've got another daughter who's going to be a senior in high school this coming year. So we're going to be a very different family this time next year with 2 kids gone. But we have a son, and he's only a 9th grader. And so we've got a remnant left for a few more weeks. Zach and I have served together for a while now, and we actually both went to the same school. We both attended Dallas Baptist University for undergrad and graduate degrees as well. Or actually, you were here at Truett for your...
I got my graduate degree at Truett.
I got my graduate degree at DBU a long time ago, and have been what's called a gathering pastor at Highland. There it goes. I knew it was going to happen. They're back heavy. Yeah. For the last 12 years. And at our church, in our context, what that means is I oversee worship, production, and communications, and that kind of the umbrella. But we have amazing people like Zach and other people on our team that actually know what they're doing. And so I just oversee them. I don't have to oversee everything that I don't know. So just for some context for us, how many of you come from some sort of a production background, or you're coming from a production lens? And how many are coming from kind of a worship or music lens? Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. We figured it would be a little bit of a split, and I think that's why they put the 2 of us up here as well, because we're a bit of a split. So to give you some context about our church, hopefully this is helpful, because when I go visit churches about once a year, just try to get my eyes on what other people are doing and get some good ideas. I always leave with this question, like, what is their context? How does it relate to my context? And what can I take from their context and put in my context? What can't I take from their context and put in my context? And what can I take that I need to tweak or change, right? So some of these things that we talk about might not directly apply, but maybe the philosophy applies or something like that. So let's just give you a little bit of context about our church, Highland, here in Waco. It's a 102-year-old church. It was founded in 1923, and so it's got some deep roots in Waco. When it was founded, it was on the edge of town, and now it's pretty much like dead smack in the middle of town. It's in the middle of a neighborhood, and our zip code is the most underinsured zip code in McLennan County. And so we do a lot of neighborhood ministry at our church. We're in like the worst possible location. If you wanted to plant a church today, you would not plant where we're planted, because you cannot find the church unless you have got Apple Maps or Google Maps turned on. So that's our context. But about 12 years ago, our pastor is a guy named John Durham, and he came in and started kind of doing some renovation in the church, and the church has progressively moved a little bit. It's moved a little bit younger, but it's kept kind of its more traditional roots in some sense of the word. Let's see what else about. We're in a college town here. Is anybody from Waco here? Got one from Waco. Okay, cool. So because we're in a college town, we have these like big swings during the year, depending on the time of the semester and whether there's a football game in town and stuff like that. And so we definitely like feel the Baylor swing whenever summer hits or whenever December hits. And so we're kind of working through those contexts as well. Our staff context, at least for our portion, we've got 4 people on worship staff who kind of help run Sunday mornings and set everything up together. And we've got 3.5 people on production staff. The half person, he's actually a full person. He just is contracted in to help us with some of the stuff we do. We do 4 worship gatherings. We call them worship gatherings. We do 4 worship services per Sunday. We do 3 in the summer. So right now, things are awesome for us. Because, yes.
What's your membership?
Like the amount? 4,500-ish, give or take.
Yeah.
And that's about what we run on a Sunday morning, but just in the school year. So right now in the summertime, we literally lose an entire service because the Baylor swing and people doing that. So we've got 7 more weeks. Great for us. So our service times are 8:40, 10, 11:20, and then 4 p.m. Hence the need for many staff members. And so I'm trying to give you context because I know at my last church that was not quite the case. It was me and one other guy, and we did 3 services a day. Our volunteer context is we've got about 40 to 50 production volunteers on rotation at our church, but they're filling 13 spots per Sunday. And then our worship team is 35 people on rotation, filling 10 spots per Sunday. And that doesn't include our choir. So we don't count choir as like multiple spots because they're kind of their own entity in that way. And then I think that's a good context for where we're coming from. We do the live stream thing, and so that's for sure like a thing that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about production stuff. And so Zach and I thought it would be a good idea to talk about 3 things essentially, really philosophy, teams, and logistics. I just want to give you a good picture of how we think about production, how we think about the relationship between production and worship, and then how do we go about the fact that we think about it in this particular way. How do we go about setting it up and organizing it, because that's super important too. So I guess let's talk about philosophy a little bit. How do we think about our teams? I'll turn it over to Zach for a minute.
So context is very different now than what it was even 10 years ago whenever my wife and I moved to Waco and started going to Highland. The teams look very different. And my background, so I served for a couple churches when I was in college in Dallas, and the production was like just a couple of people running lyrics and running lights, and then maybe one more, definitely one more person running sound. But it looked very different in that there wasn't much of a production team that we had, whereas coming to Highland, we had several volunteers, several spots that we had to fill. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a thorn in your side.
You're good. Keep asking.
Define production.
Yeah, so from a Sunday morning perspective, everything that's tech related. So not production in like we're making some kind of concert or making some kind of production, but production in the sense that we've got people on cameras, people running pro presenter and lyrics, people running.
So it's all the things.
Yes, yeah.
All the back end things that make service work.
Yeah. Everything.
Just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
Yes, yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a great question too, because it looks different in every church, and different churches use different names too. But our camera operators, our lighting operator, our pro presenter, we use pro presenter for our system. So our pro presenter operator, and then we have people directing, like with a switcher. So we don't, the only time we show cameras in the room is during sermon or baptism or like a welcome time. Like during worship, we're not showing the cameras there. That's just for the live stream only. But some of the problems that we noticed at Highland were actually some of the similar problems that I noticed at the couple of churches that I served in the Dallas area. One of those was we struggled to get volunteers. I think production is one of those, or tech is one of those things that people are scared of, or like, oh, I don't know technology. I can't do that. Which in reality, if you know it, it's like, we can set it up, and really you just have to push a button. Like we need somebody to be there. You don't have to program anything. It's not a programming position. But we struggled to get volunteers. Then we also saw a high turnover on the production team. I think we'd see several people come in and it wasn't what they thought it was in some sense, or they expected more from what their responsibilities actually were. And then we also struggled with a lack of buy-in. I don't know about your context, but the context that I have been in the past especially, is that production was there to serve worship. Like the only reason that there was a production team or a tech team was to serve what worship was doing. And then there was also, because of that culture, not really spoken, but that unspoken culture, people didn't really buy into what was happening. They were there to do a task. And so there wasn't a lot of worship in that. And I think with production, there's worship through it that you can do in serving the Lord. And so volunteers would just show up, do a task, and then leave, and they missed out on worship that day. So a few solutions that we saw, we started to figure out how to create unity between the teams. We saw that especially that culture of like serving the worship team or serving whatever the worship was doing, that there was some unity that we could create. And a lot of that, it started with us, like we had to be unified in what we were doing, but also we could bring that over into the production team. And we wanted to start to create buy-in for the production team. How do we help them see the importance of what they're doing? For us, in our context, we have a lot of shut-in older people, or even like families that are traveling, or families that are overseas, some of our missionaries, that they're tuning in to our live stream. And when we look at the numbers, it's a couple thousand people, and that the production team has the opportunity to minister to through that. But then also the recording of that, people will go back and watch the live stream, participate in worship in that way. And then we also wanted to teach how production and worship were serving in the same way, that they're serving together as equal parts in the ministry. And so some of that, like we had to rearrange the expectations that we gave to the team. We had to set some clear expectations. So for context, some of the expectations that we have of our production team, which you already heard, we've got about 13 spots that we fill each Sunday. And that's because we have a rotation. Like at our 4 p.m. gathering, we have different production people. They're not serving in the morning. But we have multiple cameras, and then we have audio. We have 2 sources of audio, one for in the room and then one for the live stream. And then our person running lyrics, person running lights, and then someone that's directing the cameras, telling them where to point, making sure that we're all on the same page, and then a producer role that's typically covered by a staff or contract person. And so the expectations for them, because we have many people, is serving at least once a month. And then also some of what we do on the front end of the morning is meeting before we even start rehearsal, is we're all meeting together. So the expectation is that they're there by a certain time. We don't do a rehearsal during the week, we just rehearse on Sunday morning, which Jared will talk more about that and how we make that work. But really the expectation of them participating in worship too, and not just being a warm body to fill a spot. Giving them that expectation, but also showing that in themselves. I was talking to Jared, I feel like it's very rare on a Sunday that I'm not like crying in worship, because I'm worshiping through what I'm doing. But those are some of the expectations that we have on our production team. And
Similar, our teams function a little bit differently for worship and production, and there are some reasons for that, but some of our expectations for worship team then is we only rehearse on Sunday mornings, and so we use Planning Center to send out the plans. Maybe some of y'all use something like that to send out plans. Back in the day, it was a Word document that you typed up and emailed out, but Planning Center's made it very easy to do that. So we send out the plans, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit, to everybody in our ministry. So it goes out to worship, production, Spanish translation, welcome team, actually starting next week, 4 p.m. production.
you said choir?
And choir, yeah. So it goes out to everybody at the same time. So the expectation then, because our musicians are not like rehearsing together until Sunday morning, is that you're going to come 100% prepared, ready to go. We found it very difficult in our context to do a midweek rehearsal, and that's because our room is also a gym. And so there's a basketball ministry that happens a couple times a week, and I don't know if you've ever tried to play music while basketballs are bouncing. It's not it's not conducive to what you're trying to do. And so for sure that, of course, there's spiritual expectations. There's expectations of like functioning as a good team member, of being having good chemistry with other people. And so yeah, that's some of how we do that. So the way that we oriented ourselves, or kind of reoriented ourselves around some of these changes, it all stems from wanting to create a big family, essentially. Like, how do we take this from individual teams into what feels like one big family, all kind of moving in the same direction? So we started something that we called Worship Collective Nights. We have since changed the name of this to Gathering Team Nights, but the name is really irrelevant. The heart behind it is that everybody would show up to one big thing, and there's people who serve in all different elements of the church that come to this. So there's welcome team, there's people who do Spanish translation. Like I said, it's pretty much everybody who receives a planning center. There's people who lead worship on the front line, there's people who are musicians on the back line, there's people in the choir, there's production people who serve in the morning, there's production people who serve at 4 p.m., right? But the idea would be that you come to this event, you get a free meal, and you sit at a table with other people, right? Because what we were finding out is there may be a production guy who would go up to the choir to help with the monitor, and the choir people wouldn't know that guy's name, right? And I was like, I kind of have a problem with that. Like, I want this to be much more than that. So we started doing some teaching on what that could look like, and really, back in the day, what we would do is we came up with this set of 8 declarations, is what we called it. I just want to talk about the first one, because what we would do at these worship collective nights that we started having once a month is we would all say these declarations all at the same time to kind of start ingraining these things into our hearts. The very first one that we always said was, and we said it all together simultaneously. It was kind of fun, almost kind of cultish, but it was a good practice. We said, we are worship leaders, every one of us. And the context that we were trying to get through everybody's mind is, it doesn't matter whether you are pushing a button on a Sunday morning, if you're a volunteer, if you're pushing a fader, if you're singing a song, if you're playing an instrument, if you're welcoming somebody at the door, right? What you're doing is you are setting up somebody to experience the Lord in worship in that way. We cannot do it without each other. That's the whole point of what we were trying to get across. A few years later, we started to incorporate Psalm chapter 84 into this teaching. And so, at the very end of that psalm, it says, I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. I don't know if this is right to take it into this context, but what we would do is say, what you're doing today is you're serving as a doorkeeper. in whatever position you're doing, you are holding a door for somebody to be able to enter into what the Lord has for them that day, into God's presence even that day, into what the Word would say to them that day. And you're holding the door, so it makes it very easy for somebody to walk in. How are you holding a door? Well, that depends what position you are. That depends what you're doing that day. And so I really can't do my job as a worship leader playing a guitar and singing a song unless the pro guy is doing his job, right? And if the lighting guy is not doing his job, nobody can see anything. And if the audio guy is not doing her job, then nobody can hear anything. And so, right, it's this idea that like we are doing this together and we're a family. And so that's the shift that we started to take. And what we found, it was really good. So these gathering team nights that we do now are just that. We don't talk about positions at those nights. We don't talk about teams really that much at those nights. What we're talking about is unity and direction for all of us. But then we also find that it's pretty important to have team unity as well, right? And so we have this gathering team that we have, but then we also have the worship team, we also have the production team, and we also have the welcome team, and we want them to have an identity as well. That's important, but it has to come under the overarching umbrella of who we are as a group. And so some of the team things that we do, we've got modes of communication per team, so we've got a text thread with all the worship, all 35 people. It's 33 people because 2 of them are green on the little iPhone thing, and you can't have that. So we also have a group me for those. So we have some modes of communication. Of course, Planning Center is a mode of communication, or emails that go out to those individual teams. We also do team events that are specific to teams. So on the worship team specifically, we'll just send out a message. We're doing this next week that says, hey, if you show up to Chick-fil-A at 11:30, we'll buy your lunch. We just want to hang out with you. And our staff will go sit there for an hour and a half and just wait for people to show up. And it's a really easy way to cash in good relational time with people, and also build team unity. That for sure onboards team culture. We've also got processes for volunteers coming in. Everybody that serves on our worship team that's not part of our 4 staff members are volunteers, so we don't pay people at our church. We did at one point when I first got there. We were paying people, and it just we don't have to do that anymore. And so we think of our volunteers and we treat them just like any other volunteer in the church. And so if you were doing preschool ministry at our church, we are considering you equally as important as the person who's doing preschool ministry, and we're trying to get that across as well. So Zach, I know you've got a few different ways that y'all communicate for your team, and then we can keep going.
So just to kind of continue that unity with each other, we also have to have unity within our team. I mean, we've got several people that most of them will never serve with each other, just because there are certain people that only serve at 4 p.m., certain people that only serve in the morning. And so we want to create that unity in other ways, and a lot of that is our communication. One thing that we've found, especially with our expectations, if we're not communicating that, then people, they have a different expectation than what we have. And that's where a breakdown really happens, is in relationships in general, is different expectations. Like if my wife asks me to take out the trash, and I say yes, but her expectation is I do it then, but my expectation is later. That's when there's tension. And so if we can work on those expectations and share those properly, we do that. So creating those opportunities for people to get together, just like the worship team does team events, the production team does as well. Ours is a little bit different in that many of our people are, there's not as much flexibility in their schedule, or we even have several college students that are gone during the summer. So we might do something after a Sunday morning, like, hey, we're going to provide a lunch for you. We just want to hang out, and there's no agenda. It's really just getting around the table with one another, and you getting to meet somebody new, and sharing that common, the two common things. 1, the gospel, and then 2, that you serve in the production team at home. Then we send out texts each week as well to the team that's serving that Sunday. So on Thursday of that week, we send out a text to the team, just kind of more so like, hey, this is what's happening this Sunday. It also helps if they got a planning center and they didn't accept it, or whatever. It also shows them, hey, just a reminder, like you're on for this Sunday. Sometimes we get a text, hey, I'm so sorry, I didn't see that. I can't serve this Sunday or whatever. But we send out a text to them on Thursday just saying, this is what we're doing. We've got a couple baptisms, we're doing a commissioning, or we're doing communion this Sunday. And then also on Saturday is when I send out a text, and that's more spiritually based, spiritually focused. And the worship team does this as well, where it's like, hey, let's center our hearts on Christ even before we get there on Sunday morning. We try to create different opportunities for team culture. So we do have the gathering nights, which we do 2 a year, but then we try to do at least 2 team events.
Per semester.
Yeah, per semester, sorry, 2 team events per semester. So like a game night, we try to a Wii gaming night, or just a lunch, things like that.
Lunches are low-hanging fruit because we found that typically everybody eats lunch. And so if we just make ourselves available, it is such an easy win, to have time with people and really like be able to ask questions differently. You can ask questions differently at a restaurant than you can at church for some reason. And so it's a really cool way to just like get an easy win for sure. So what we want to do for the remaining time is 2 things. We want to tell you how we set up basically any given week at our church, including a Sunday morning. So we want to give you like our Sunday schedule, what that looks like, but also the schedule leading up and some of the things, the tools that we use that we found to be helpful. And then we probably will leave a little bit of time for Q&A if anybody has some questions that we can help to answer. I don't know if we do it the right way or the wrong way. It seems to work for us, some of these things, and so you are fully welcome to steal anything you would like to steal or any idea that you would like to take for sure. So let's talk logistics. I want to start, let's start with worship details. We'll start real high altitude. And then also let's pull up a planning center so we can show a planning center. So this document right here at our church, we call it worship details. And our entire staff has access to this. This is something that we manage in our ministry. And it's pretty much, can you make that like 90% or 75%, Zach? On the little thing, yeah. The basic idea of it is that everybody would be able to know what's coming on any given Sunday. And so, like I said, our staff has access to this, but also our volunteers have access to this. I don't know how many people use it or not, but it's a great way to stay connected to what's going on. So essentially what's happening here is you have the dates. These are all Sundays. You have the series, and kind of if your church does like sermon series art, we do, and so we put the series right there. We have who is preaching. So most of these are going to be our lead pastor, John Durham, but sometimes he'll, probably 80% of the time, he'll put somebody else in there. Our gathering times, because I think I told you earlier, we do change gathering times throughout the semester depending on the time of year, essentially. We have a thing for baptisms here, so anytime we schedule a baptism, those are put in this and what service time those are going to be at. We've got our host team, and so what that just essentially means is our staff is on a rotation of when they need to be where to essentially host, which pretty much means that they pray for people up at the altars that we have up front. They're maybe in the they have a spot in the lobby that they're assigned to welcome people in, etc. That's just what that means. We have an other column, which is for everything else. So you can see it there, or you may not be able to. It's kind of small. That's where we put things like baby dedications, or if we're going to commission a mission team to go out. Communion, you can see in red down there, or maybe the preacher that week has a specific song idea that they want to have, so we'll put that in that. And then announcements, those are typically filled out a few weeks in advance if we can. But we try to, Zach, if you'll scroll down a little bit, we try to keep this updated, at least a skeleton, for quite some time so that people can at least get a good idea of the direction we're headed. So once you start getting down to the late fall into the winter time and even into next year, the template's the same, we just copy and paste, the template, but obviously like some of these other things like baptisms, we're not scheduling baptisms out a year in advance, and so some of those type of things change a little bit. So that's a very helpful document for everybody, and it kind of keeps us all on the same page, and that way even production volunteers, worship volunteers, anybody who's not like paid staff can see kind of what's coming. Let's do roster rotation, and then we'll do planning center. So this is what we call our roster rotation document. These are all Google Sheets. So if you have like a Google account or whatever, these are free to make. So essentially what we do for scheduling is, while Planning Center is a great tool to remind people the week of that they're scheduled to be there, it's not a great tool in that sometimes people will schedule things over their previously scheduled assignment at church because they've forgotten about it, or we haven't done our job to schedule them out. So we decided that it would work for us better to schedule out pretty much a semester at a time. So what we do is about a month and a half before the upcoming semester, we'll send out an email to our teams that just says, we know everybody's schedule is kind of crazy, but give us your off dates for this coming semester. In other words, if you know for sure that you cannot serve on a Sunday, like you're going out of town on vacation or whatever, give us those dates, and we're going to put them on this off date list over here so that we know when it comes to that week, we're not going to schedule you. We'll schedule somebody else. That's kind of how that works. And then we tell people, obviously things come up and you get sick the week of, or something happens out of your control. So give us as much heads up as you can, but it's okay. Like there's grace if you can't serve on a Sunday, and we'll be able to fill that spot. So what we've done is we've put production and worship on the same document, and this is another way that we try to get the point across that we're all one squad, we're all one team, we're all trying to do the same thing. So we have all the different positions up here for production, and of course off dates over there. And then we have the positions for the band, which is drums, bass, keys, a couple of electric strings, and our MD. And then we have our front line, so that's everybody on the front line, and those in green are scheduled for that particular week. Those in red are off that week. They have an off week. And so probably the next, I think we said 2 weeks, Zach and another guy on staff, Jordan, are going to send out that off-date email to our teams with some other information and just say, whatever you know, whatever dates you know this coming semester, please give us those, and we'll put the schedule together, and then we'll let you know. Then we go to Planning Center, and they'll get a Planning Center invite the week of. And so this is really just a reminder at this point, because hopefully once they've gotten the roster rotation, they go on and put all the dates in on their own calendar. And then by the time they get the Planning Center, it's just kind of a reminder like, oh yeah, I do know I'm scheduled to be here that week. So this is the way we set up. I know everybody does Planning Center differently, and if you all have better ideas of how you do it at your church, I'd love to know that as well. I'm always trying to improve this. But this is what our Planning Center looks like. Essentially what we have on the main part of the page are elements of the service, including songs, including baptisms, including what we call hosting, including the message with a little bit of information about that, and then kind of the response time, how we're moving through those announcements at the bottom, and then of course the total time there at the bottom as well. And then on these notes to the side, we've got some helpful notes for both production and worship team. They can see like if there's a different leader leading the song, they can see who that is. We always put scriptures on our center screen that go with the song that we're singing. We're real big on singing songs that are from the Word of God or have some kind of tie-in with the Word of God, so we want people to know where those come from. So that's what you're going to find on that center screen. And then of course we've got notes like who's playing lead electric that day. That helps our audio guys know how to mix well. We've got notes for lighting and some things like that. And then over here to the side, besides service times, rehearsal times, other times, you've got teams. And then teams are all going to be right here together. And so we've got AM production, PM production, and then worship frontline, backline. We've got pastoral leadership, who is doing what that week. We've got our 3 different times for worship choir. We've got Spanish translation, and then it starts our like greeters and welcome team and stuff like that. So the idea is that, let's start down our schedule now. From Monday to Wednesday, really Monday and Tuesday, I am working heavily on the backside of Planning Center to put together what a Sunday looks like. Then on Tuesday, I meet with the other worship staff. Hopefully this is about 80% done by that time, and we kind of put the rest together, shape it. Oh, hey, I've got an idea for this. What if we did this? Oh, that's cool, I like that. Or actually, Pastor John said we're going this direction, so what if we did this? So by the time that meeting is done on Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday morning, we should be pretty much finished and complete with this. Then on Wednesday, in fact, this is going to happen in about an hour and 24 minutes, we've got a meeting with all of our production and worship staff that we called Sunday Logistics Meeting. And we're going to go over with everybody what the plan is for the coming Sunday. And we're going to talk about who's on our teams, like who's on the rotation that week. We're going to talk about any elements that are different from other weeks or anything we need to really key in on. When that meeting is over, I'm going to go back to my office and I'm going to write up a Planning Center email that's going to go out to all of those teams, to everybody. So everybody knows you have to have your teams in by Wednesday morning, because that email is going to go off right before lunch. And that's going to have a little devotional for everybody. It's going to have like things to know for this Sunday, maybe some different elements. And then it's going to end with, let's make sure that we are all going out and talking to people this Sunday. We're in the congregation, we're in the lobby. We want to be faces that are accessible and easy to get to. And you know, it's so much easier to lead worship to people you know than people you don't know. And so that's the way it'll end, and that's going to go out. From that point, the baton really is handed off to production, especially to start basically like setting up what it's going to look like. And so if that's somebody going to the lighting board and making sure that all the different scenes are set and ready for our volunteers, then that's something. Zach films all of our baptism testimonies, so if somebody's going to get baptized, they do a little testimony of what the Lord's done in their life, and then we play that video on a Sunday morning. Our ND is going to go, he uses Ableton to run tracks on Sunday. We're going to use tracks, and so he's going to go start building those. Basically, the baton is handed off so that all the things that need to happen to make this plan happen can happen. Then finally, on Thursday, we meet one more time, same group from Sunday Logistics Meeting on Wednesday. Thursday at 4 p.m. we meet to basically sit in the worship center and basically walk through each element to see what it's going to look like. So how that meeting, Zach leads that meeting, and essentially he'll say like, all right, let's go to the first song. Lighting guy will hit what the first song is going to look like. We're going to put that on screen. We're going to look at the scripture and make sure all the words are spelled correctly and that what's capitalized needs to be capitalized. We've got something in our church that we do called Pray Celebrate, and that happens like in this main time in our service. And what it is people the week before have sent in prayer requests and celebrations, things that the Lord's done in their life. And we redact names from that, but we put the situation up on the screen. So it'll say pray at the very top of the screen. These will kind of roll across the screen. It'll say pray. My son was just diagnosed with leukemia, stage 3 or something. And so what we'll do is we'll tell the church, like, okay, these are prayer requests and celebrations from your church family that came in this past week. It's, you know, as we sing, also like see these with your heart and with your eyes and be able to pray for them kind of as we're doing that. So we'll look through at that meeting all the prayers and celebrations that are coming through, make sure they make sense, make sure that they're spelled correctly, etc. And by the time that meeting's over, we should all feel really good about showing up on a Sunday morning. At that point, it's like I'm very confident that when we come on a Sunday morning, it's not going to be a stressful day. So that's the whole idea of the 4 p.m. meeting. So then we get to Sunday morning, and here's our Sunday morning routine. We meet as a staff at 6:30 a.m. And this is just a quick production meeting. So we hand out planning center, hey, just a reminder, this is what's happening today, this is what we're doing. I do a little devotion, just real quick, maybe like a minute, or less about the day, and just we're really excited. And then we go through all of that, and then we listen to, Pastor John's done with his sermon by that point, so he gives us a little overview of where he's headed, and some of the transition points, like if he's going to pray at the end of his sermon, what time he wants the band to come back up on stage to help lead the response time, etc. So that's going to all happen at that meeting. As soon as we're done with that, about 6:45, we're going to do microphone checks and a sermon walkthrough upstairs. And so I don't really know what happens up there because I never go.
Just once, when you preach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so our biggest desire with all of this, like why we're so detailed, is we want our volunteers to be able to come in and not worry about getting something set up. Especially if they haven't been a part of like planning everything. And so one of the reasons at 6:45 we have our presenter operator come early. Pastor John will walk upstairs and meet with them. We'll get to kind of hear the sermon before he preaches it. Not every pastor is this way. I know that there are several pastors that get their sermon notes in like right before a service starts. But Pastor John's very detailed and gives us he tells us when he wants things to come in and when he doesn't want anything on screen, or like when we can have it nothing on screen. And so we're able to walk through that with our presenter operator just to give them some more confidence. But also the reason why they're there to walk through it is to give them some ownership over it as well. Instead, what we could do is he just talks to us and then we tell them when to do it. But if they're there, that gives them a sense of ownership in it and allows them to participate in that message as well. And then also we walk through our announcements during that time, making sure that everything is in order and that the presenter understands where we're going for that.
So as soon as that's done, Pro arrives a little earlier, but all of our other volunteer teams arrive at 7 a.m. and get set up. If they've got a pedal board that they're bringing, if they need to go to their station for production first. It's kind of
setting up a camera, getting a camera ready, or even just like our lighting operator will look through kind of what their cues look like and making sure that they remember the buttons that they have to hit and things like that.
We want to give as much buy-in as possible to our people. And then the next thing that we do, which is really the first thing that we do, is we call it base camp. And I can explain why we call it base camp later if you're interested, but essentially this is our meeting with everybody. So this is all production volunteers, this is all worship volunteers. We go to a neutral location in our lobby because production is coming down from like a booth in the top and we're coming down from the stage. So we meet in a neutral location in the lobby and we get in a big circle. And somebody from our staff is assigned to do basically their like prayer and devotional that morning, and so we lead in with whatever it may be. Maybe we're taking communion that day, or maybe it's just, hey, this is I want to talk to you about Psalm 84, and this is the direction I want you to pray today. And then that person will give some ways to pray. So sometimes we get in groups, and we're generally say like don't get in a group with all worship people or all production people, but like mingle right now. So they'll all get in groups and we'll do this, and it's a beautiful time where really it feels like you are one team in that moment. And that's the whole hope that would happen. As soon as that's done, we introduce any new team members if it's somebody's first day, which happens pretty often on the production team. Less often on worship team because we only onboard once a year and they onboard all throughout the year. But we'll introduce anybody who's a new team member, tell a little bit about them, clap for them, etc. Then we will, our MD will walk through Planning Center from kind of a worship lens, and then the producer for the day, whether that's Zach or somebody that he's delegated that to, will walk through the day from a production lens. So mainly speaking in a couple different languages there to people who are doing different things. And then finally, we essentially all come in the middle, we do a team huddle, we put our hands in and we say 1, 2, 3, and then whatever the word is for that day. Sometimes we'll just make up something funny, you know, an inside joke or something like that. And as soon as we do that break, we go into rehearsal. Everybody goes to their spots, depending on what they're doing for that day. Usually have given them a word like, hey, what you're doing today is of eternal value, don't forget it. So don't think that you're just pushing a button, don't think you're just playing notes, but you know, this is something that's an eternal way that you're serving the kingdom. So at that point, we go and rehearse. That happens for about 30 to 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, if we have more songs to rehearse. During rehearsal, we probably have to go quick on this portion because we're running out of time, but during rehearsal, essentially, band and worship leaders are running through songs and how that's going to go, so that's pretty self-explanatory.
Production is making sure that we're hitting transitions, that we understand what's happening, what's coming up. I mean, I know some churches, especially where I've been in the past, if somebody was serving at lights or whatever, they'd come in, I don't know, 5 minutes before. And so we're intentional. We want them there early to kind of, one, that they're a part of worship, like they're participating in that, and they play an important role, but then also so that they understand what they're doing instead of, hey, okay, we got 5 minutes, let me go over this real quick, but really so that they can see. And if they're there a little bit earlier, it gives them some ownership and some opportunity to even do different things than we might normally do, or that we had planned, or whatever.
Super helpful to whoever's running pro also to be able to keep words going while music is happening, because then they're like, oh, I see what they did there, I'll be ready for that, things like that. When we're done with rehearsal, we kind of, somebody says thanks on a mic, and we, musicians kind of go break back here, we do some vocal, make sure we're all good vocally together, and then I know y'all do something else.
Whoever's the producer for the day will then keep all the production people in their place and just kind of go through everything one more time. And we're hitting things, making sure the computer works, because I don't know about your churches, but our technology fails a lot of times. I'm sure it's perfect wherever you're at. Yeah, we oftentimes things don't happen the way they're planned. And so we want to make sure that a video has sound, or that when we hit that slide, it actually goes to the right screen. And so we just kind of walk through everything, making sure people understand the transitions. It's really helpful when we do abnormal things as well. Like if we're singing a song in Spanish, usually it's in the middle of a song. So it's like, okay, and remember we're switching worship leaders here, and so we're just able to walk through that one more time. And then from there, pregame begins, and that is a great time for our teams to be together. That's where we get a lot of unity, where we get a lot of our, like Jared said, our first service starts at 8:40. So essentially we've got 20 minutes. I asked the people to be there in their spots 5 minutes before, so we can do one more check, making sure that we have people, really, because I've had it where somebody hasn't gone to their spot, and I'm like, where'd they go? I know they were just here, where'd they go? And so it just gives us one more time to make sure that they're in the right spot. But all of that in between time, that's where we have a lot of conversation. And silly, there's one of our guys who's about to propose a couple weeks ago, so we got to talk about that. And then a couple of the other people talked about like how they proposed and things like that. And then I got to celebrate with him later that Thursday, whenever he actually did propose and got engaged.
So that was a lot of information, but we wanted to give you as much context as possible about where we're coming from. We do have like probably 11 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions about what we just said, or anything that, I don't know, might have not made sense to you.
Do y'all have youth that are involved in both the worship and the production side, and how are you communicating expectations with them about that?
Yeah, so yes, I've got youth that serve. I've had one guy who's been serving for 8 years now, and he started when he was a sophomore in high school, and then he went to Baylor, and so he's kept serving. So a lot of that, I've had different youth, some that haven't been as reliable or communicative, So a lot of it is I'm communicating with the parents and just making sure that they understand, try to help them as much as possible. There was one student that he couldn't drive, and his parents were bringing him anytime he served, and so I told him, I was like, well, like I'll come pick him up, or like we can work something out, or and so there was a time where I'd pick him up or find somebody to pick him up. But a lot of it is just like communicating it to the parents, like making sure they understand what the expectations are, and then with them treating them. I think we can bring people up and expect more from them that they're willing to give. I think for the longest time for me, I always felt like I was a burden on someone to like ask them to do something or serve again or whatever. But then when I started to do it, I realized that they wanted to. Like I've got one volunteer who's like, I'll serve every Sunday. Like he's about to retire. He's like, I'll serve every Sunday. You let me know. I'm like, well, that's awesome. I want other people to serve as well, but thank you so much. So I think a lot of times it's like how you're communicating to them is also, it's communicating to the parents, making sure that they understand, kind of creating a relationship there. But then also expecting more from them, allowing them to rise to the occasion.
We have students who serve in our worship choir every week. We also have kids. We really treat it like a worship choir, so they're not reading music. They're not needing to read anything. I mean, they're extensions of what's happening on the microphones, essentially. And so we, as long as the parents with them, not for youth, but for kids, I mean, we'll allow kids to come up there and lead worship from our worship choir. Youth can certainly do that, and it's kind of a fun thing for them because they get all their buddies and they want us to go sing in the choir today, and they'll come up there. We have a student worship team. I'll get to that question. We have a student worship team, and so we funnel our students to that first and foremost. So we actually don't use, for Sunday mornings on a normal rotation, we don't use students under the age of 18. But some of that is just because we really want to funnel them into student ministry worship. We do a very similar thing with college, although we will use college on our Sunday team. So, yeah, hopefully that helps.
Talk a little bit about your worship choir, please.
Yeah, so worship choir is about 85 people strong. Not everybody is singing in every one of our services. So like I said, we have 8:40, 10, and 11:20 in the morning. And that's where we only started 4 p.m. last year at this time. So that's really new. We haven't actually started or launched a choir in that service yet because that service is still really growing. Like we'll probably see like 400 to 500 in the fall or so. And so we're brainstorming now how to start that, but it's not there yet. So the morning times, essentially what happens is everybody who has signed up for a specific worship choir time, whether that be 8:40, 10, or 11:20. Some people sign up for all three. Some sign up for two, depending on maybe if they're going to a Sunday school class in the middle or something like that. Some sign up for one. So ideally what's going to happen is I'm going to send out the planning center. They're going to receive the notification that says you've been scheduled for 8:40 worship choir. They're going to show up backstage 10 minutes before. I'm going to talk through anything this is kind of happening simultaneously while production is doing their thing, but I'm going to talk through anything that's different. This past week we were serving communion in a different way, and then we're going to all walk up together. Worship choir is going to go up to the little risers that we have. If you want a video of what this looks like, you can go to YouTube and type in Highland Baptist Church, Waco, Texas, and you'll be able to see like a Sunday morning way we keep them all archived on there, so you certainly be able to see what that looks like. But it is all ages. We have some people in their 80s, we have people in their 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, teens, and sometimes even kids will come up with their parents to go up there. We have, what else would be relevant?
So since they receive the planning center and by midweek along with everybody else, they've got that same
So they
list
know
of
the
songs.
music.
They know the
But
music.
it's unrehearsed.
Correct.
It's unrehearsed, but they have received the music and YouTube videos of that music by Wednesday, and then they'll also receive which would be true for everybody, what our Ableton file looks like for that week, and so they can actually go back and practice singing without vocal tracks to everything if they want to. Essentially, everybody is going to know the songs at this point. Most people have been part of the worship choir for a long time, and if they haven't, or if it's a new song that week, I for sure give them a heads up on that. Hey, this is what this looks like. And what I essentially tell them is melody is your best friend. So if you don't know how to sing a harmony or that doesn't come naturally to you, just sing the song. It'll be great. Sing the song like you're part of the congregation. But if you can hear a harmony and you're skilled at that, go on and do it. We'd love to have some harmonies. And so we utilize the worship choir as an extension of the worship team, but also a mirror for the congregation. That's the idea. And I try to tell them, hey, the congregation is going to be following you probably more than they're going to be following me. If you are really seeking the Lord in this time and really leading well in this time, you are the biggest group of people up on stage. And so just know that's a big spot to be in. So that's how we utilize them. That has changed over the years, but if you want a better idea, YouTube would be a great place to go.
I saw in your Excel spreadsheet there was a column for announcements. Can you talk about the process of getting those to that place for the staff, the communication wise?
Yeah, how we do it communication-wise. So we have a position on staff that's a communications lead. And so they're funneling things. People put in requests for things or other things. And we have a tier system so they give it a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, depending on how they see that event as an important thing to their ministry. Example, we have a Wednesday night Bible study that starts in the fall, also goes in the spring. Our women's and men's ministry oversee that. When they send in a creative request form or communication request form, they're going to put that as a tier 1. What that puts that as saying that's a very important event for them, that they need graphics made, they want an announcement, they want a slide and pregame, postgame, they want social media. They're trying to drive as much traffic to that as possible. And then tier 1's typically, those are really easy to put into announcements. And then tier 2, that's more so if there's space, then we might put it in. Tier 3 doesn't get an announcement. So those ministries are saying in and of themselves, this is our most important event. And we work with them, so I do a lot of communication stuff as well. We work with those ministries to help them determine, because they can't put every event as tier 1. They're doing a bingo game, that can't be tier 1 at the same level as their discipleship group that's meeting weekly. And so we because we only have so much space, we want to limit that and help them work through that and figure out what is important to them as well.
2 key things on that. If an event or something that they want announced, that somebody wants announced, speaks to a large swath of the church, it has a better chance of getting announced. Announcements are not guaranteed. At our church, we keep it at 2 minutes or less because we want to put our time other places. And so our staff knows you need to communicate as if you're not getting an announcement. And then that decision on what announcements are going to be that week are actually made in comm team meeting with Pastor John. And his only criteria is that if he's going to make an announcement, he wants a slide with it on the screens that has information, etc. And so that's part of the comm team's, responsibility as well to make those slides. And so eventually, by the 4 p.m. walkthrough that I talked about, we're going to see those slides on screen so that we can make sure that what Pastor John is saying is accurately reflected. And then all our volunteers have to do is press the button and those magically appear.
So they're done live in the service, not a video.
So they're done live.
Yeah, we don't make a video or anything.
They're done live at the end of the service.
And yeah, we do it at the end, the very end.
Last question. You gotta go.
Yeah, just quick on volunteer commitment load. It sounds like, at least on the production side, y'all have enough volunteers that everyone should be roughly once a week, although
Yeah.
clearly you mentioned people express to be more.
Yeah.
but just on either side of the stage, do y'all feel like y'all have enough, keep enough volunteers to keep that like once a month? Or is there always kind of a little bit of a push one way or the other?
From ours, so I, whenever I meet with everybody, I try to do like a meet before it's like, hey, you're serving today.
Yeah,
And so in that, I'm always talking to them, hey, this is my expectation of a commitment level. What is your availability? Like, you want to just stick with once a month, or you want to do more? So I do have a few people that are like, yeah, I'll serve twice a month, or so some of those people I can fill them in more, fill them in different roles. I have my top go-tos once I have somebody decline for a Sunday. Yeah, I think sometimes it feels like I don't ever have enough people, but a lot of it is just I just try to communicate with them more than just a Sunday. Like another thing that we didn't talk about is like, I'll go get coffee with somebody, I'll go get lunch with somebody, I try to get my associate to do the same thing, and like kind of keep that relationship, trying to let them see that they're wanted and that they're valued. And so that helps with burnout. Some is them seeing that, and then like trying to provide them a space on Sunday morning to show them like we have breakfast, like we have a refrigerator with different kinds of drinks and frozen food, like they can just offer them something to show that we want them a part of this, that we value them, we really appreciate them. So a lot of appreciation stuff. Does that answer your question?
For us, saying 1 to 2 times a month is max that anybody's gonna serve, because they're long days.
yeah.
So, yeah, that just is how many people you have on the team. Thanks for coming today, guys. Really appreciate it, and I hope that was helpful on some level for you and your church, and blessings to wherever you're headed back to this week, and of course this coming Sunday.
If you want those sheets, I can give you a link, and then also share our email addresses with you as well.
Yeah, for sure. We can hang for a few minutes.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming.